Oh, do you like that? Do you like that? That's the Falcons theme song. I think that was from 1993 or 94. It wasn't in the first year. It wasn't 92 when they went to the entertainment centre. I think it was either 93 or 94. But everybody, welcome to the Falcons podcast. But we've got to listen to that once more. Just check this out. Isn't that good? Okay, so welcome everybody to the Former Falcons podcast. I am DJ Clint Dog, and I will be bringing you a former Falcons player, coach, somebody to do with the Falcons, something to do with the Falcons, every few weeks on the Falcons Facebook page. I'll try and get it on the old Spotify and all the Big Dog podcast players on the internet, but we'll see what we can do here first. But firstly, as you can probably tell, the Falcons page is staying open. I reported probably a couple of months ago I was going to close the page down. It was very, very upsetting that, to me personally, because I've been running the Falcons Facebook page since Facebook began. What was that, 05, 06? Running that and holding the Falcons torch alight since 1998, 99 when they folded. Yeah, so it's pretty disappointing and upsetting to me that, as you all know, the Falcons are back in the NBL 1. I thought maybe I could have got a job there doing the courtside announcing, playing the music, but it's all good. It's okay. I'm back with the podcast. And the reason why I'm doing this podcast is because I didn't realise, when I made the announcement, I didn't realise that there was so many people. I mean, when I post a few videos and pictures and singlets and whatever from the Falcons days, you know, a like here, like there, a couple of likes, you know, share here, share there. But I didn't realise there were so many people when I announced the page was going to shut. There was ex-players, there was ex-coaches, there was ex-referees, there was ex-score bench people, there was ex-people. There was XXs, there was XX. Everyone was commenting saying, you know, they enjoy the videos and they enjoy that. So for that reason, I'm going to keep the page open and I'm coming back stronger with this podcast. So episode number 1, here we are. I am DJ Clint Dog and Ken Cole will be our first guest. Let's go to it right now. All right, welcome everybody to the Former Falcons podcast. We've got our very special first guest, Ken Cole. How are you, Ken?
I'm very well, Clint. How are you?
I'm good, mate. What's been happening lately? I've seen that you were inducted to the 36ers Hall of Fame at the end of last year.
Yes, it's been amazing in the latter part of the basketballing life. You know, I'm now in the Hall of Fame in New South Wales and Victoria and South Australia and Basketball Australia and the NBL and 36ers and St Kilda, and you know, for such a bad boy for so long that nobody would let me into anything. It's sort of really quite nice at the latter stage anyhow. So
come full circle, eh?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's nice. Made a lot of good friends, made a few little enemies along the way, but very few that ever became personal. And a lot of life keeps rolling on. That's
right. So take us back to, I'll set this up. 1987, you took over from Owen Wells at the Supersonics, and then he took over from your former assistant coach, Steve Johansson, in Newcastle for the last 4 or 5 games of the year. So take us back to, was it 1987 when you got the first phone calls or first meetings or messages about coaching the Falcons?
80s, yes, right after I left the 36ers, really.
Was it?
So it came shortly after that, and I spoke primarily with Basil Sellers, and Johnny Horsell that played for South Australia, and I'd known John on and off for a while back, but never been much to do with Johnny, but always got on quite nicely with him. He was a guard for South Australia.
Yep.
And John was in business up there in Sydney in the insurance side, and he was in partnership for a lot of business with Basil Sellers.
You're right.
And Basil owned the team, and Basil called and I got together to have a chat with him about, well, we're just going to talk about what was going on. I didn't know whether he was going to talk to me about anything like it. And he talked to me about in Newcastle, and he was thinking of perhaps buying the television station there and combining it with the Falcons. And he was thinking about what would I like to lead up something where maybe we could try and build a 15 or 20,000 seat arena, and he would have the backing to do that, and we could get into business with the guys in Brisbane and Sydney in a trio. So that was what the talk was about. And then he said, have you got any ideas? I said, well, I wouldn't mind trying to work out how to put a team in England where you've got the Gestetner business and all of that sort of stuff now, but maybe we could put a team in over there and we could have 6 or 7 guys that could be playing year round, playing in the Australian League, playing in England and Europe. So on that basis, we had sort of reached a tentative agreement that when the year was over, when that 87 season was over altogether, then they'd make the announcement. And I said, okay to that.
So this was all before you even took the Sydney job on?
Yes.
Yeah, right, okay.
And then, around the same time that I was talking with Mike Wroblewski about what possibilities there were there on the marketing side, and Michael and I came to an agreement that I would work behind the scenes building up marketing and PR stuff. And that was the first major thing that we came up with, was to start the pre-season classic.
Right.
And that was because we wanted to try, and Michael kept talking about he wanted to promote Sydney. If Sydney became strong, the league would become much stronger. We're not breaking through. And I talked about doing a pre-season tournament over a week before the season started, all in Sydney, with all of the Americans there, and bring sports writers from each city in. So you guys like yourself, would have a chance to interview all of the different imports right through that week.
Yep.
Start the season off the next week. So it's going to be a real professional thing. You'd bring them all into town. You'd put them in a nice hotel. You'd wine and dine them and show them who these people are and let them do interviews that you could run later in the season. That was the plan. And so we were starting to move on that. And then we were walking down the main road heading down towards the beach at Bondi, and Michael said to me, it was part of the way through the season, and he said, this is a disaster and I need to get rid of the coach.
Right.
Owen Wells. And I said to him, no, you need to run the season out, Mike, and make a change. He said, well, I want you to take over the job next year. And he said, but I think we need to do it now. And I said, no.
Right, and so that was because you had the previous talks?
It was because I had spoken to Basil, and I was quite prepared to say to him, look, I have to reconsider because I've got this offer from Sydney, Basil, and it's too good. And Pauline wants to stay here. Yeah. If that was the decision I was going to make.
Okay.
But in the first instance, I was trying desperately to work with Mike and get this tournament thing underway and help the team behind the scenes any way I could.
Was that the Kmart Classic? Was the 88 the first year of the Kmart?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. Yep, all right. So the Falcons won the first, the initial Kmart Classic?
I had a feeling we won the second one. So whether we started on that in
87
in Sydney and started it in 87, and then in 88
and then
I was
you guys
up in
won.
Newcastle, and we went down and won that Classic. But at the time when Mike was talking about that, I said to him, no, I won't replace another coach.
Right.
And then at about the halfway mark of the season, I can't even remember when it was, or somewhere round about that, we were out there watching a game, and I said to Pauline at halftime, we're going to leave. And she said, why? And I said, because Michael's on the move, and he's on a bloody little phone thing, and he's calling down to this guy. And I said, he's trying to get to some of these committee people. I got a bad feeling about tonight. Let's go home. So we didn't live far from the stadium out there, so we headed on home.
Yeah.
And the first thing I did was walk in the door and take the phone off.
Okay, yeah.
And so if he's got his nose out of joint and he wants to talk about something with Owen again, you're not going to get hold of me tonight. So all right. I'll leave that. Yeah. So I left it off, and I'm still sitting there playing music and stuff at 3 o'clock or 3:15 in the morning anyhow. So I hang the phone back up, and it rang. I mean, it just rang straight away. I pick it up, and it's Mike, and he said to me,
he's been trying to get you all night.
Yeah, he said, He said, we've fired Owen, and I need you at practice tomorrow morning at 9 to introduce you to the team, and you'll take over the rest of the season.
Right, okay.
And I said no.
Right.
I said no.
All
No,
right.
I won't do that. I said, Mike, what did I say to you a couple of weeks ago? Didn't I tell you I will not replace a coach during the season? Don't ask me to do that.
Yeah.
And he said, you'll have to do it because all the guys on the committee are almost like children for me, and I've given them my word that you're going to take on this job. It'll make me look so bad.
Yeah.
And the bottom line was he'd fired Owen, but he hadn't told the players.
Okay.
So when I walk into the change room the next morning, the morning after the game, when they're already all down and pissed off because they got beaten, there's no coach in there, and Mike walks in and says, I fired Owen and Ken's taking over as coach.
Yeah, right.
Well, not exactly a sparkling way, because I had made some comments about the team that, these guys, I've just come from the 36ers, pal.
Oh, okay,
You're asking me to look at one or two of these forwards and compare them with Mark Davis and Billy Jones.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And where's my Al Green? Etc. So I said to him, okay, I'll do this, but I won't coach next season. So don't ask me to coach next year.
So was it officially was it an interim thing? How many games was it, by the way?
I was just appointed then as coach of the Supersonics, and through to the end of the year, and then negotiations started to turn it into the one team, and Bankstown had changed, and et cetera, so there'd only be the one. But I wasn't fully aware of all of that going on. That may have even changed me around a bit. I wasn't aware that they were that far down. But I was also really enthusiastic about the potential challenge of trying to build a program. So I always had just, when you're growing up in different phases of your life as a teenager or whatever, and some things just stick with you for years later on, and you start creating something that may not be accurate, but you think, boy, when I was living there, life was fabulous. I mean, so the year that I spent up there with Newcastle, we won the state championship. The team was the state championship team when I moved up there, and I became the glorified so-called stadium manager.
Right.
But it gave me the ability to shoot a basketball around 6 or 8 hours a day and clean the courts, and I was a glorified cleaner.
Yeah.
So I was supposedly running the association up. Well, they were a loaded team with Johnny Gardner and Les Atkins and
what year was this? This was like in the early 70s or
64.
64, right? Yep.
So I made my first Australian team 60 years ago in October this year.
60 years ago.
Yeah. I made my first Australian team at 18 and played in the World Championships when I was still 18. So, and then when I came, that was 62. So when I came back, I was working at a factory. This oven that I was scraping peanuts out of, the brake went on it and crashed it back into my knee. And we were going away. Charlie Ammett, the coach, had worked out 4 or 5 games in country towns and then the Cootamundra tournament. And my knee started to swell up like a balloon. Well, I didn't know what it was. It just hurt. So I went and played each game, and it kept swelling, wrapping it in ice and stuff, and played the Cootamundra tournament. And by the time I got back, it was a bit of a balloon. I go to a doctor, and it turns out that the cartilage is now scattered into pieces under the kneecap because I've split it off all over the place. Had to wait till they drained the knee and got all the fluid out. They operated on me. No recovery treatment or anything. Stayed in bed for a month. They kept me in bed. Left me out of bed. What do I do to rehab this? Keep wearing the splint was their advice. So 63, I was just trying to rehab. After the Australian Championship in 63, I moved up to Newcastle. They offered me a role as stadium manager. So I went up there and took that on.
So you were at Newcastle before the Falcons?
Yes.
Yes, right.
Yeah. And so when the discussion came up that Basil owned the Falcons and wanted me to work with him to build a 15 to 18,000 seat building and try and take it international, everything, all of my thoughts were how good a time, exciting a time I had in Newcastle, and how great it would be to go back there, and this will be terrific. I did not expect to run into any sort of vitriol from a committee or anything. I mean, that never ever occurred. I didn't know whether there was a problem between Basil and and the previous people, the skeleton group that were running it.
Yeah,
I just thought that they were happy that an outside group with the money had come in to take over the team. Yeah. So I didn't realise that there was a lot of bitterness going backwards and forwards between them too that
Well,
muddied the water.
That's Newcastle basketball for you, mate. Let me tell you.
I know. So years later, when there was the chance to go back, my thoughts and memories about Newcastle were all positive. So
Okay.
I thought we'd be walking back into a real fun position, and it was anything but that. I mean, people were posting little things on the notice board that I was working the players too hard for them to allow them to play properly.
Oh, Jesus.
And I'm looking at some of this stuff and thinking, do people really believe this shit? Sounds like this is I got a couple of kids in the team that are 18-year-old, and one or two of them are obviously been written by one of their parents.
Yep. That'll be right. Yep.
You're just thinking, this is really weird shit. I'm trying to create a situation where these guys are full-time basketballers and they practice 2 hours a day individually besides our team practice. Right. The facilities are open to them, and I'll make sure they can get to a gym, and they've got medical people and all sorts of stuff. But I want to see these guys on the floor working every day.
So 1988... that was your first year. Now, we'll just go through, from memory, just off the top of my head, you had Sean Dennis, the starting five. Yep. Sean Dennis was the point guard, Jerry Everett, Mike Johnson, Wayne McDaniel was at the 4, and Derek Polk at the 5.
Yes.
Now, you've made it to the first round of the playoffs. It was back then in 88, it was the top 6 teams, and it was a knockout competition.
Canberra.
Yep. So you played Canberra in the first round and got knocked out, but you won, as we said before, you won the pre-season competition, the Kmart Classic in 1988.
Yep.
You had a couple of guys on the bench there as well. You had Peter Hill.
Yep.
Now I'm going back from my memory. Paul Zatto. Robbie Dempster was on that team, wasn't he? 88.
Robbie, I think Grant Kruger.
Was he 88 or 89? I think he was 89.
I'm not sure. He might have been 89. And young Peter. When did Peter come along?
Pete Harvey.
Peter Harvey.
I think he was 89 as well. Who else did we have on that team?
Well, the problem was at the end of that season, Wayne, who was 20 to 25 points a game for you, Wayne was gone. And there was nothing to do that we could do to hold him. Now, and I didn't understand enough about that either at the time, because I certainly could have tried some things. But
he eventually went to Hobart, and
he went to Hobart. He was offered a job at a radio station.
Yes, I was going to say that. Was that the clincher for him or for you or whatever?
Yeah,
getting him the job at the radio station.
Yeah, he wanted he wanted to break into radio.
Right,
and they'd offered him that role down there, and so he took that. Derek, the owners felt that we needed a different type of running centre, more a Billy Jones type rather than Derek Polk.
That was 89. You wanted to after.
Yeah, so we were going to lose Derek and we were going to lose Mac, and then Peter Hill, who I had started giving quite a bit of court time to, just came up and asked me about another one of our top players, and was he going to be there next season? I said, yeah, and he said, well, I don't want to play with him anymore, and asked for a clearance. And
right, and that was at the end of 89.
Yeah, and so we were down 3 real vital pieces that were all playing very, very well at the time, and certainly would have given us a bit more leverage or a bit more waiting time. Jerry Everett was certainly as good as any guard that's ever played basketball in Australia. He was just a superb talent who...
He was one of the first rebounding guards that could do... Like, he was 6'5", 6'6", and could dribble the ball and shoot as well. So he was...
Could dribble it in traffic and reverse dunk it back over his head and then knock down 3 or 4 shots from three-point range with hands all over him. He was totally unguardable.
Yes.
But he had no idea how to play with anybody else.
Okay, yeah.
And because my first reaction to watching him carefully at training is, there has to be a problem because this kid should be in the NBA.
Right, yeah.
What's the problem?
That talented.
Problem. Yeah. And so in Jerry's case, and the thing that made it hard too is he was not a selfish player from the point of view he was just out there to play for himself and his numbers. He just truly believed that. I said to him, Jerry, you penetrated there and you had a guy open both sides, left and right. and you took the ball straight into the three-player traffic to shoot it. Why didn't you just kick it off to the open player? He said, I can score easier on the three of them myself than giving it to guys that can't shoot like I can.
So he would just rather take them on. He believed in his ability.
Yeah, completely.
Right.
And it never. And so, I mean, in Perth, he got 30-something in the second half, and they tried anything and everything on him.
Yeah.
You know, the funny thing was we had some outstanding games towards the latter part of the season each time that kept me thinking. And in the United States, I mean, we beat Alabama when they were number one ranked in the country by 20-plus points with Sprewell and a whole lot of Robert Ory, I think.
Yeah, those two guys were playing against the Falcons.
They were number one team in the nation.
Yep.
We had run LSU to a hard game 2 nights before.
Yeah.
And then we come out against Alabama. And I didn't start Jerry. I didn't bring him in because we're halfway through talking about what we're going to do. And Jerry got up and walked out and went to the bathroom.
Right.
He didn't say anything, just got up and strolled out.
So he got benched.
By the time he'd come back and we're going onto the court, you know, hey, Jerry, no, don't take your stuff on. You're not starting.
Yeah.
Said, you weren't there. You weren't there when we talked. So I left him off because we hit everything and we were way in front at half time. And I'm looking up at that and just thinking, I swear on the Bible, we're 2.5 minutes to play and we're 23 or 24 up.
Yeah.
And I turned to Dennis and said, I don't think they can catch us now, do you? And he just burst out laughing. And I said, I'm serious shit. I said, I just keep looking up all the time and can't believe we're still where we are.
Was that the game Mike Johnson hit 8 threes or something?
No, he did that against LSU.
Oh, LSU, right? Okay, yes.
And when at the press conference after, one of the guys said, the reporter said to Dale, Coach Brown, you know, is that the best 3-point shooting you've seen in the United States? He said, that's the best 3-point shooting I've seen on the planet.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
I've been going through some of the old games, like, you know, I'm posting the games online, and honestly, some of the, like, not so, maybe 88 to 91 or so, but pretty much after that, whenever the Falcons were down, if they were down by 3, they would just kick it to Mike Johnson. He could be standing on his head or standing on his hands, and they'll throw it to him. He'd get on his feet and just shoot that, and it's whap, nothing but the bottom of the net every single time. I mean, it's crazy.
He was... When Michael got on the streak, and of course he's a legitimate 6'6", and he used to shoot the ball at the very top of his height, so there wasn't much you could do about him. And I used to run a single screen for him on the ball, and then a double on the ball, and a double off the ball, and that's what we did with LSU. I was, you know, how smart you can be as a coach and all of the brilliant things you can do. I was ready to sub him out in the LSU game. I'd actually called one of the guys up alongside me and just started saying, I need you to go in and pick up so-and-so, this number here, and this is what I want you to do. And then we came down the floor, and for Michael took a shot and made a 3-pointer. And I said...
Fading out of bounds or something, probably.
Wait a second anyhow, so they come down and have another play. We run down. Michael hits another three. I said, cancel us up.
Yeah.
And just let him go. It took Dale about the first 4 or 5 shots before he took the time out. But it was incredible because it was Shaquille in the building from the day Shaquille played his first game. You'd have 50 to 80 reporters taking the entire bottom section on one side of the court, just packed.
Yeah, just
and
looking at him.
And the building jammed a standing room only. So it was packed, and the student section was a madhouse.
Yeah.
And they started after the third shot, clapping Michael. And
Michael Johnson, were they?
They're cheering, you know, because here's this skinny Australian bastard throwing it in from the parking lot.
Yeah, he was literally,
And it was, we got right into the game. 2 or 3 minutes from the end, a big-time call that they took off us. We made another 3 that they took off us. That would have brought us back to 2 points or 3 points down. They called us for an offensive foul.
Yep.
The guy jumped up and down about it and bitched about it, and they called a technical on him, and then another 1 or 2 on other players, and another one on me. And we ended up going from like 3 down to 12 or 13 down before we touched the ball again.
Jeez.
You know, which effectively ended the game in this bullshit. And that was the game also, because I remembered this because a guy made a comment the other day commenting about some refereeing and how bad it's been and stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the comments was, he said, maybe you should have used that thing about that somebody said once about what I'm thinking. And I thought, well, maybe I should post that again because that's where that started.
Yeah.
And I used to say to people initially, I don't know where I ever got this from. It just seemed to happen at the time, but I must have heard it somewhere. Well, Brian Gorgin's dad said, Yeah, you heard it somewhere.
Yeah.
He said, because everywhere we used to go, people used to say, "Did you hear what that Australian coach said to him? Can I get a technical foul for what I'm thinking?" And they laugh. No.
Was it the other game? Was it 1989? Another game where Shaq, or was it this game you were just talking about with Shaq and LSU? Was that the game that he broke the chains or
I
the
think
supports?
so, early in the game. Yeah, or early second half. He went up, and Michael was standing behind him. I didn't see Michael. I couldn't see Michael on the court. Michael just disappeared in the shadow of bloody Shaquille.
Yeah.
He went up and he dunked this ball, and he used to love doing this dunk where he'd dunk it and then swing on the ring and almost like do a chin-up.
Like put his feet up on the backboard or something.
Well, and so he's done that, and he's grabbed it, and I'm looking at the board, and I'm thinking, that board's starting to come down, and is it? And it's an optical illusion.
Yeah.
No, and it bent down. Well, it was the old boards, and you used to have those great big steel rods going all the way out, wires, and into cement that were holding it at the back. Then they'd undo them at the end and roll the things out.
Oh, yeah.
And it snapped them out of the cement. It snapped the bloody things out of the cement, and everybody. And so the backboard wasn't that the backboard broke or anything. The back part just snapped, and it pulled the whole bloody thing down, the whole structure. So the backboard came down, hit the floor.
Yeah.
Players are running from everywhere, and they came over to the timeout, and the only response was, "Did you see what he just did? Did you see what?"
Because Grant Kruger was telling me that he had to guard Shaq. He was guarding Shaq, and he said Krugs was the one that said he was underneath the hoop when he broke the chains or the supports.
Well, I remember Bullock taking off and driving on Shaq twice early in the game, went straight past him like he was nailed to the floor, and Shaquille just ran him down and just swatted it against the board.
Really?
But when Bruce Palmer came over with the with Coburg guys, I was telling him on North Melbourne, I'm telling him, this guy's a monster, and he said he's in his second season. He's only 18. I mean, how good can he be? I said, he's really, really good, Bruce. Wait till you see this fast. Oh, yeah. So we come out, and on the first play of the game,
he done one of those backboard feet up on the backboard dunks.
We get the ball. No, we got the ball, and we race down and throw up a shot. It misses. Shaq jumps up, grabs the rebound. It's a long rebound. He literally turns and throws it straight past the nearest two guards there. So now he's in the open above our key, and there's one player who was still standing around the halfway line. What's his name? Johnson that used to play at Wollongong. And he's retreating.
Oh, TJ.
So he's retreating, and Shaquille's leading the pack, racing down the court with everybody behind him. And everybody in the building had a pretty good idea what Shaquille O'Neal was going to try and do.
Yeah.
And Johnson's retreated to the keyhole, so he's about halfway up the key with Shaquille coming flat out at him, and he took off and jumped over him. Now, obviously right at the jump just a little bit, but he jumped right over him. And he went to dunk it two hands, and he missed, and he hit the back part of the ring, and the ball bounced back into the paint at the other end.
Yeah, right.
Scared the shit out of our guys. The dunk wouldn't have been anywhere near as effective. To see a guy hit the ring after jumping right over your player, and with such ferocity, the guys they were shattered.
Yeah.
So after that, it was just a joke. He just dunked and did anything he liked. So Shaquille was a true monster.
Yeah, he was. I watched a couple of his games, LSU games, and he was tearing it up. But
he was a great athlete.
Oh, he was, and he was doing what he used to do when he sort of retired, but he was younger and agile, and he was it was like he was destroying people. But going back to the '88 team, I think I left out Stuart Allen and Chris Steele.
Yes, Stuart. Oh, of course, and Stewie and Chris, who both were terrific working players. There are a lot of real. We were so close at the end of that first season that the temptation was to try and keep everybody, and then you lose Mac.
Yeah.
And then you've lost Peter Hill, and they want Derek Polk replaced, and you got a chance to pick up Bullock. But Bullock was a totally different kettle of fish altogether, the way that he played compared to... And he was just a statistic chaser. He wanted his rebounds every game.
Yep.
And he gave us some great games. He gave us some great games, James. But we never got it. Jerry was the major problem, because I spent half my time... I kicked him out of the team three different times, and I'd never kicked a player off in my life.
Yeah.
And I kicked him off three times, and finally, the final time was giving in to his wife, who was just telling me that they're living in absolute abject poverty, and he's a...
So that was when he came back, before he came back.
Yeah, well, she was pregnant, and they were living in a dilapidated place in downtown New York, and She didn't know one person in the building, and she was scared to death, and she was pregnant, and please give him another chance. And I brought him back.
Yeah.
Got a sponsor to furnish a beautiful apartment for him. He sold everything in the apartment.
When you sacked him?
Just sold it. So we didn't even know. We just sold all of the stuff. And
he got the hell out of there, didn't he?
Well, he was fine when he came back. And for the first month or two, he was fabulous. He trained great, played great.
Yep.
Just getting to the early into the start of the season or whatever.
Yeah.
And then she had the baby, and he literally changed overnight.
Did he?
He didn't want anything to do with with her or the family or anything else at all. And his whole mood started changing. It was just so strange, and then just got completely out of hand. Threw an elbow at Chrissy at the middle of the practice, and I stopped and said, "Hey, Jerry, don't do that bullshit. Don't throw another elbow like that." And almost the very next play, he throws one to Chrissy and pops him in the eye and split his eye. And I just said, "Off you go, pack your stuff." And then he wanted to shape up, and I said, "Oh,
what to you?"
Yeah, he headed towards me at that stage. I said, I don't think that's wise. Jerry,
Well, I used to attend a lot of the Falcons practice sessions and stuff, and I think, from memory, that was a morning practice session. And what happened is I used to catch the bus.
Right.
I used to catch the bus to the stadium, and I used to come about halfway through practice. It'd get me there, and I missed the bus. I actually missed the bus. So I thought I'll get the next one, and I got the next one. I got there, and there's no Jerry Everett, and I'm going, what's happening? And everyone, so he just got sacked, So I missed it. So I missed the whole lot of that incident. Yeah.
Yeah. It was something I was so bloody sad about, And there's nothing in the world you could do, and you really didn't want to start going into details that would make the kids sound worse and all of this sort of stuff. So you're trying to say, no, we just reached a stage where it just couldn't work out anymore. Yeah. When it happened in the States was pretty similar. He'd almost just...
Yeah, what happened there in the States?
Well, he just disassociated himself to the extent that you'd only ever see him just before you were ready to leave, or, just when you got to a game. It was nothing that was over bad. He just wasn't really interested in anything. The guys are out there playing their asses off. That was the other thing. I mean, the American game suited us. We had great games against. We ran LSU close. We walloped Alabama, and we beat Mississippi and Mississippi State back to back, and followed that up with getting on top of Memphis for the second time in a row when they had Penny Hardaway. And the team we.
So Penny Hardaway played against the Falcons.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Geez, I didn't know some of these names. Spreewell, Penny Hardaway, and who's the other guy you mentioned?
Horry. Oh well, and of course for LSU,
and Shaq.
They had Shaquille, they had Chris
Jackson, yep.
Stanley Roberts,
yes.
It was a rather loaded little group, and it was the same. So many different places around there. We played against guys that went on to play at major levels. And the kids played great, and it was a good type of basketball environment and stuff for us. And of course, you're just on the road, and yet there were so many times they didn't. I just thought they played hard all of the time, and we just weren't good enough to win some of the games. And then I think at other times, I was doing so many other things at the time too, trying to do all of this other stuff that, did I do the sort of job I should have been able to do either, or did I not do as well? And yet at the coaches thing that year, when it had just been announced that I was leaving Newcastle, I got voted in by the Coaches Association as the top coach to coach in the All-Star game.
All right.
Because they said, with this team and so forth, Dave Atkins said he thought it was the best coaching job he'd seen me do. And we played everybody close. I really kept thinking, we could take that next step.
Yeah.
We need that. We're out one or two pieces, and the problem was when you got a Jerry Everett as good as he was. But Neil Turner I always thought Neil had a chance to really move forward, but he never could change his jump shot from a dribble jump shot, shooting it from a low position. So he not. But look, we got all we could get out of Grant Kruger. Sean Dennis went from an ordinary player into a nice, strong, solid guard. Peter Hill was dangerous as hell as a shooter. Peter Harvey was certainly fine coming off the bench, didn't do too much wrong, scrapped around like buggery.
Yep.
Kruger wasn't frightened to knock people on their ass.
Yep.
The nucleus were there to put in Mark Davis at his best and Al Green at his best, or Mark Davis and Darryl Pierce, and you got a team that would have been knocking on the door of a championship. They just needed those one or two. And Mikey was really hard for the younger players to play with. Mike could be really temperamental.
What, just
and,
not like shooting it too much, or what?
No, well, I remember saying one day at practice, because I probably talked to Michael after practices on the phone at night more than anybody else. He's a basketball junkie, and we talk for hours and hours. So I really like Mike and still do. I think the world of him.
Yeah.
I remember saying at a practice early in the week, "Hey, Mike, was that the best shot we could get off? I mean, is that the best shot?"
Okay. Yeah.
And then he wouldn't take a shot for the next 4 days.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
And so one or two of the younger guys could get a bit spooked, or like, do we keep throwing the ball there, or will he get pissed off if we don't? Or so you were putting out or coming over to the bench and telling me there's a guy up there in the third row over there that's really paying out and putting all sorts of shit on me, and it's our court, and I'm looking at him like, what are you talking about? People abuse the shit out of me all game. I've got no idea what's going on.
Not even can't even hear.
How can you hear that?
Yeah. So 89, that was 88. Wayne Mack left, of course. We spoke about that. So on to 89, you recruited. You mentioned some of the guys there: Neil Turner, Grant Kruger. You brought Billy Jones over from Adelaide in 89. Who else were the new guys? You kept Sean Dennis. You kept Peter Hill. There's someone else. I'm going to think of it. But so you guys.
Oh yeah. Kid from Wollongong, a forward, about 6'6". What was his name? Nice kid. And Billy, that was the most disappointing thing, because I'd been told we had outstanding contacts at that early stage through Basil's people in the government, and that everything looked fine to get Billy's citizenship through.
So he was going to become an Australian.
Yes.
Right.
And then when it got to that stage at the end of the year, and we're wanting to add 2 new Americans, so they've picked them out for us, and we've searched it out. So we've signed 2 guys.
Yep.
And then find out that they haven't got Billy's naturalisation through.
Yeah.
And then Basil was moving out of Australia, so the person who was driving it sort of lost all interest in worrying about that. And so I had to let Billy go, and that was heartbreaking, because he
never played NBL again after that. I think he went to Frankston or Victoria or Gippsland or somewhere like that. But
he looks $1 million.
He looks the same as he did in 89.
Oh boy!
But
just in sensational shape, and he's just a great
It's a shame
guy.
that he never went on and played any more NBL after 89.
Because he was
if he was naturalised, it would have been all right.
He was almost an ultimate team guy. He just, in our case with the 36ers,
James Carr was the other guy. James Carr.
That's him.
Yeah.
He had one decent game with me, I reckon, ever, and it was against McNeese State in the United States, and James came out and played like I thought he was capable of.
Like he should be.
30-point night, and I thought, thank God he's finally turned the corner.
Never again.
Never did it again. Bless his heart. Oh, God, it was up. And then we had...
you kept Chris Steele. You kept Chris Steele from the year before. I think that was about it. But
I tried to get... not Giddy, the other guy that was down there.
Gordon, Ray Gordon.
No, Warwick Giddy. Yeah, no,
Warwick
I tried
Giddy.
to recruit Giddy. I was going to bring him up.
Warwick Giddy. Okay. And Josh Giddy, his father.
He ended up going down to Melbourne Tigers.
Right, so he was going to come to the Newcastle Falcons.
I was chasing him for the Falcons. Yeah.
Right. Imagine if that was the case today with his son in the NBA playing for Oklahoma.
Yeah.
That would have been crazy.
Yeah, there was a lot of interesting things, and then we brought over Lazard and
1990 was Lazard and Tom Curry, and then you let Tom Curry go because of his knee or something, and then brought in Bullock. Before the season started, this was
Tom Curry. I had a phone call from a good friend. I think he was coaching Marshall University. I'm not sure, but he had been an assistant at LSU. And he called me about Tommy Curry, that he had signed up to play at one college, and then he transferred across to LSU, and they thought he was legitimate NBA stuff, about 6'10", could handle the ball, move real well and so forth. And he said, and it didn't make the first round stuff in the NBA and took on a contract in Europe somewhere. Can't remember where.
All right.
Went down to play down there and got into the season, and things were a bit of a struggle or whatever, and they just didn't pay him.
Right.
And so he had nobody representing him at that stage. He'd lost the job, so he was sleeping. Person from the embassy found him sleeping alongside the railroad tracks, and they thought he was suicidal and all sorts of stuff.
Really?
So this coach said to me, "We finally got him back home, and he's cleaned out and so forth, but he desperately needs an opportunity. Could you sign this kid?" And I said, "How good is he?" And he told me, and I said, "And you think he's okay?" He said, "Yes, I think he's safe." So I said, "Okay, yeah, I'll sign him." So I brought him on down and talked a lot with him, and then we went
because him and Lazard were some of the two of the biggest guys I'd ever seen in my life at that time. Lazard had a chest as wide as a bloody pool table.
He was wider than I'd ever seen,
and every time he dunked the ball, oh my God, he nearly talk about Shaq before.
Yeah,
I mean, he'd nearly pull the rim off the backboard.
Yeah, he was absolutely.
Curry was that build too. Tom Curry was that same build,
but he didn't have necessarily very good hands, so he couldn't just pluck the ball out, go up and dunk it. He needed time and space.
He was a lefty too. He was a lefty as well.
He was a lefty, and he had a little tweak in his jump shot, but he should have been able just to get to the board over and over and over.
Yeah.
But Curry was a different cat, and he was talented. And we played in a pre-season thing up in Sydney, and he came up to me after, and I thought he'd had two excellent games. They were only low 20s or whatever, and I thought he had a couple of great games. Yep. Came down to the room, and I told him, I said, "I think you're coming along just great, Tommy. Everything's looking great. Week or two off the start of the season, you'll be in fantastic shape."
Yep.
And he said, "I've got to go home, coach."
Really?
And I said, "Why?" He said, I can't do this. He said, "I just can't do it. I can't do this anymore. I'm terrified. I don't want to." And only a week before that at practice, or no, maybe 2 weeks before, it was a good session. It was hotter than hell, and we were just running ourselves over and over. And he went over to the side of the court near the score bench and grabbed a towel and started to bring up fluid.
Right.
And like he's first of all is vomiting, and you think, "Oh man, he's vomiting," and then you realise he's just bringing up fluid. And I've never seen anything like it in my life. I couldn't believe that a human being could have that much fluid. He just kept bringing it up. Yeah. We had to rush him to hospital. He was totally dehydrated. Had to plug him into stuff and everything else.
Right.
Came back, and apparently that was nervousness.
I was going to say, yeah.
It brought that on, and he played in the tournament. But mentally, he just could not do it. And then I grabbed Bullock at the last.
Yeah, because I think the media thing was he had a sore knee, and that's why he went home. So I didn't know that, what you just said.
Oh, it was very sad for Tommy, because he was a really, really nice person who'd been badly damaged by whatever had happened to him overseas. And he just said he was frightened. He was terrified of walking into the crowd and everything. And he just said he just couldn't do it anymore.
But when Bullock came in, mate, he got, he averaged 30 and 15 rebounds, or 25 and 15 rebounds.
He was just a rebound machine. Bastard and he was a different type of rebounder than Mark Davis. Mark Davis was just a powerhouse monster that just went straight up, grabbed it, went straight back up and shot it in.
Yeah.
But Bullock had come from all sorts of angles and chased them down.
He was a bit more lanky. He had a bit longer arms than Mark Davis, but he actually swept the boards pretty well. I think he might have won the rebounding NBL.
Oh, yeah, he was top of the league in a couple.
He topped the league at, I think it was 1990, and probably 91 as well.
Well, he made a dunk against either Perth or one of the top teams in the league in our last or second last game. Was a fantastic game. Bucket for bucket, right down to the wire. It's the very end of the game, and everybody thinks the ball's going to go to DJ, go to Johnson on the other side of the court. And Bullock takes off down. I said, "If you can get past him, James, drop." And he drove full length, rode down and dunked it.
Yeah.
It was a monster end of the game.
I still remember the dunk that he did to win the game in 1990. It was very early in the season against the Canberra Cannons. You didn't even have your proper uniforms like sent to you yet. You were still wearing the Aussie Tapes uniforms from the American tour, but he stole the ball off Phil Smythe literally with 3 seconds to go. You were up your end, the Falcons end, and and they had the ball. Canberra had the ball, and they inbounded it, and Phil got the ball, Phil Smythe, and then I think he went to pass it to someone, and literally Bullock came out of nowhere, stole it, ran the full length of the court, and dunked the ball on the buzzer to win by a point. That is one of the best finishes in the NBL of all time, I reckon.
Oh, yeah, James could play, but he was an unusual guy. And I think in James's case, I think the basketball was an opportunity for him to travel a bit and see some places overseas and so forth. The basketball was not really a motivating factor, other than he was one of those guys that was, obsessed by grabbing at the statistics and seeing at halftime how many rebounds he had. Oh, yeah. There's not too many do that, but when you get one or two of these people that are a little obsessive, they hit straight for the score sheet. You start thinking, uh-oh.
But Greg Lazard, that same year, 1990, he ended up leaving early as well. I think about a month before the season finished, he went back home. What happened there?
He'd had a couple of incidents around town.
Yes,
amazingly.
I'll remind me to tell you one in a sec, but yeah, keep going.
And then he came in, and a friend had called me and said, "You got a problem with Lazard? He was at the club last night." And somebody king hit him or whatever. And I thought they said it was Sargent, but I'm not sure.
Right.
And so I brought Greg in, and when he came in, he pretty much came in ready to resign or whatever, because it was the third sit, and I'd already said to him, "Hey, you've got to keep away from places.
Yeah.
You're going to have drunks coming up wanting to fight you because."
It might have been one of the previous times. I'll tell you, I heard a little bit of a story. I think it was at the brewery in Newcastle. I think it was the QE2 or the Bojangles nightclub, one of the two, where Lazard, he went in there and flexing on everyone, who are you, and look at me, and all this type of stuff. And the bouncers, apparently there was this really, really small, because Lazard was 6'8", 6'9", wasn't he?
No. Well, he's about 6'7", 6'8",
yeah. Well, he's 6'7", so this little security guard was a little bit of a nugget, but he was only 6 foot, 5'11" or something like that. And apparently this 5'11", 6 foot guy knocked out Greg Lazard at this nightclub and knocked him all the way down, because they used to have stairs that go around up to the nightclub. And apparently this young bloke knocked Lazard all the way down to the bottom of the stairs.
Yeah, I'm sure that's accurate. I mean, as I say, there were at least 3 of those incidents, and the third time I just said, "Look, you're better off out of here, Greg. This is not going to work out." This is the third or the fourth incident, and any one of them could cause a lot of trouble. So that was, and it was getting towards the end of the season. It just wasn't worth continuing to bang your head. And yet Greg was a nice guy. I liked sitting around talking with him. He was friendly with everybody and stuff like that. But it's a different kettle of fish at midnight in a club somewhere.
Yes, that's right. But in 1990, you also, I think that was the first year that the Falcons actually took over the Hunters. So you were actually looking after the second division team as well. So you brought out, I think it was 1990, you brought out, was it Kevin Floyd and Marco Fleming?
I never really had anything to do with the Hunters.
Well, wasn't Claude Williams the coach in 90?
I don't know. He was an assistant coach with us.
Yeah, but he was coaching the Hunters. Because from memory, I thought the Falcons sort of took over the Hunters that year and brought in the imports and everything, because those two guys I mentioned were training each week as well. Not the whole season, but I think Kevin Floyd, I think he did his leg, broke his leg or something early in the year.
91. I only remember his name, but I don't remember doing anything with the Hunters at all.
Right, okay.
Now I did put some money in to the junior programs and possibly the Hunters, because I remember they were trying to raise money, and I said at the time, "Well, we'll put 25 grand in, or whatever."
Well, maybe that's what it was, because Claude was the coach, Claude Williams was the coach, and
that might have been.
I think they were wearing those uniforms I was telling you about as well. Right. The USA ones that you wore on the USA tour. So
no, that could easily have been. And see, I don't know, because I put Claude off.
Right.
And that was really because 2 or 3 of the players just...
Was that at the end of 90?
Probably.
Yeah. Because he wasn't there in
and there were 2 or
'91.
3 key players that were just figured. It was just oil on water.
Oh, right.
You know, anything that Claudia would say to them, it'd just,
Yeah,
you know, they'd be straight back, and
Yeah.
and it just wasn't worth. Like, there weren't enough problems to be sorting out without my assistant coach in a fight with 3 or 4 players. No.
Yeah, don't need that.
So it wasn't just, but and that may have been when Claude may have got heavily involved with the Hunters at that stage. I'm not sure.
Okay.
'Cause
It
once
is
it
in
started to
1990.
get-
It was 32 years ago, so I
Yeah,
don't expect you to remember.
And I left for the States not long after all of the drama started with that. I'd already interviewed Tom Wiseman and Alan Black
Yes.
and Ian Stacker,
Yep. I remember that.
and I was pretty much ready to recommend Stacker right away. The league threatened to fine me 10 grand. East Melbourne complained that I'd talked to Stacker, one of their assistants.
During the season.
And if you're talking to a player, there was a $10,000
Oh,
fine.
yeah.
So
And didn't that happen with Al Green as well?
I just said, look, he's an assistant coach there, and does what he likes, and I'm just inquiring. He's a friend anyhow.
Yeah.
But I was convinced that he would have been perfect for us. He was Victorian Director of Coaching, junior coach. So I was doing that and making these suggestions, and the All-Star game was coming up, and I get a call from the guy who was not Johnny Horsell, but Horsell's second in charge, who was looking after the team then because Basil had passed it on to John.
Right.
And this other guy, I considered him to be a waste of space talking to.
All right.
And so it's just before we're ready to go down to the All-Star game, and he tells me that they're ready to hire Tom Wiseman and they'd like him to sort of get started right away.
This was towards the end of '91, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And I said, no, I'll bring somebody in at the conclusion of the season.
Yeah.
Not right now. And he said, and I said, and I don't want to appoint Wiseman. And he said, well, you're going to have to accept that, and we'll cut the salaries in half now because you'll just be the general manager of the program. And at that stage, I said, fuck you. And,
right. Okay.
and I said, and I won't resign in case I decide to sue you.
Yep.
I said, so you fire me. You have to fire me.
So they fired you.
So he fired me. And of course, then later when Johnny Horsell called me months later, said it never would have happened if I was there. Yakka.
Ah, yeah. Yep.
But it's at the time, there were so many little bloody nothing things going on, and the battle was to try and get the licensing to form, see if we can do this building and all the other things, and organising the US tours. And then I had brought down, purely, I don't even know why I allowed myself to get involved in it, but I brought down a group of Indian kids to play around the place and paid for the air tickets on credit cards and everything else, and then they get here and a lady hasn't brought a check down because the tribe hadn't authorised it, but they'd promised it down there, but it'll be here before they go. And then I put them into a hotel for a couple of days, and they caused all kinds of problems.
Yeah.
And by the time they're ready to leave, I still hadn't got anything from them, so I'd been paying out my own credit cards and club cards. And now they've gone, and I've taken them to court in bloody Boulder, Colorado, and get a judgment against them for 80-odd thousand or whatever, and never was able to collect a cent because I would have had to go onto Indian property to be able to sue them again under Indian law to get the money. So I got a court judgment against them that wasn't worth the paper.
Because they probably knew that. They probably knew what they could get away with.
And they just and so the Falcons just took whatever that they owed me and paid off the Indians' trip. So I hope they all had a nice time. I thought it was a worthwhile cultural thing to do, but I wasn't expecting to pay out $100,000 for it. So
no. But going back to Tom Wiseman or Wisman, I remember a game. I didn't actually. I forgot about it. Actually, I was recording a game. I can't remember. I think it might have been the Brisbane Bullets and the Falcons in '91. And no, it wasn't Brisbane. It was someone else. But Tom was the assistant coach that year, and you hadn't been fired yet. But Tom decided to sit in the stands. There was. I got a video of it there. I'll I'll post it online later, but there's a video of Tom Wiseman. He's actually the assistant coach of the Falcons, but he's sitting in the stands in one of the sponsors' boxes during a game. What was that all about?
I have no idea.
You don't remember that?
No.
He was still he was still on the assistant team, like he was the assistant coach, but he didn't choose. He chose not to sit on the bench. He sat in the crowd.
Huh.
Yeah.
No, I never actually got to hire him. So
you didn't know what was going on. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe
No.
he was not sitting on the bench because, he probably wanted you to go on, I'd say.
Well, yeah, I mean, in all probability, that's right. The decision had already been made, because that's what I'm saying. They told me that they wanted him in at that stage, and I didn't agree with that. So,
well, that would be why then, yeah.
Yeah, continue on as general manager, but not coaching. And I said, well, I'm out of here. Goodbye.
Well, that's what it would be, yeah. So he probably would have said, we'll have to get Tommy on the show to confirm this, but he probably said, like it's either him or me type of thing, and you've already sort of chose me, and he's still coaching.
See, when I first met Tom, I liked him and thought, this guy's going to bring some fresh blood, and he seems to have good knowledge of the game and what he's talking about and everything there. But I came after I spoke with Alan Black, and then particularly when I talked with Stacker, I became more and more convinced that if I've got a guy here who was director of coaching in Victoria, and I really like the way that he handles players and everything, here's a guy who will have access to top-level junior players for us.
And maybe bring in a Sam McKinnon or someone like that.
Yeah, and whereas the philosophy in bringing Tom in turned out more to be that the Sellers group or John's group, they wanted to be doing more business or business in general in Japan.
Yeah, okay, and that's where he was from. He had a good contract.
And that's where Tom was from, and they thought Tom could open some doors and introduce them to stuff and make it. So that was the major. I know that was their major motivation.
He ended up going back to Japan, by the way, at the end of it all. But he actually, like in saying all that, he actually didn't do a bad job. I mean, he was there for probably. Tom Wiseman was there for 5 or 6 years after that, from 91 till about 96 or 97. And they made the playoffs, I think, in 95. And, he brought in a couple of guys. He brought in Reggie Smith and some big imports and stuff like that. And he recruited Derek Rucker back from like in 1990, he was the league MVP, and Rucker went to England, I think, and then he recruited him back here in 94. So he did some good things. Like
absolutely. Put together some good, talented good players and everything. That was there was nothing to do with personality or anything with Tom as far as I was concerned. It was purely and simply that after I talked to the different people, I thought that the best choice for the club would have been, on the basketball side, an Australian coach, which appealed to me first and foremost. And secondly, a guy who had an impeccable reputation in junior basketball, won the world under 20.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, of course.
And I got on well with Ian, and he knew me well, and I thought this will be a good combination. I don't mind at all being a general manager for a guy like Stacks, and it'll let me concentrate harder on this other building and stuff like that. So, no, it was just one of those things. But it's been part of the story of my life that a whole lot of things can end up with all sorts of bloody dramas happening around.
Yeah, but take us back to the entertainment centre, the plans for the entertainment centre. Now, I don't know if everyone knows, but you had a big part in making the entertainment centre still what it is today. It's still the tin shed, but there was a reason behind that you were going to build a bigger stadium. Is that right? And the tin shed was only temporary.
I wouldn't have touched that stadium. The tin shed.
No,
Basil. We would not have touched that at all. Basil wouldn't have touched that either.
No.
What actually came about? Hey, there's a few little things there that I was just going to put into a book, that I've never really gone into detail about. And one of them was there was a little group that wanted to form a breakaway league.
Right. Okay, like a super league.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Based on the same ideas as Kerry Packer, they would sign up, say, the top 100 players.
Yep. And splash some money and
the venue, just be a super league.
Yep.
And I literally stopped it in the middle of its major discussions at the time by saying to them, it can't work. Of course it can work. It can't work. number one, every player you sign will get banned from international basketball overnight.
Yep.
So they'll be playing in their own private league.
Yep.
You won't get referees because none of those guys will ever get a job at the
They'll get
Olympics
banned
or
as well. Yep.
Australian Championship.
Yep.
And they'll probably be able to keep you out of any decent court in the country.
Yeah.
You're not going to get any decent floors to play on. So it can't work. It might be a nice idea, but and that was one of the driving ideas behind a 15 to 18,000 seat building in Newcastle.
So it was going to be 15,000 people in that.
Minimum 15 up to 18 was the plans that we were looking at.
Right. So the 4,500 they got there now was temporary to the 18.
Well, the one that they've got there now is what we were trying to get away from.
Right.
You know, we were trying not to do that. We didn't want a tin shed that could seat 4,000 or 5,000 people.
Yep.
We wanted a state-of-the-art arena so when they've got Billy Joel playing or John Bon Jovi in the Sydney Entertainment Centre,
they can come up to Newey and do a gig.
And they're playing on Saturday and they're booked in to play in Brisbane on the Tuesday.
Yeah, they can call into Newcastle on the way.
They could stop in Newcastle and have 15 to 18,000 people from that whole region there.
Yep.
And now move up to Brisbane. And so that was part of the incentive in the beginning. And then on top of that, you're going to have Perth, and you're going to be talking to a Kerry Stokes, and then you're going to have, you know, friends in Newcastle now because you've got the Horsell family and so forth over there. So you're looking for Canberra or somebody else. And now you've got a national league with 8 teams on a guy who's a team owner who can put it on his television network, and Basil, who would buy the channel up there in Newcastle and
play the games on there.
So, I mean, it was what we did, I took 3, I can't remember the names of the guys now, but I took 3 guys that were architects from Newcastle over to look at a whole lot of sites in the United States, not just on building a real state-of-the-art type stadium, but also looking at the possibilities of just taking the top off the stadium over there at Broadmeadow, restructuring everything the way the Americans would, and just going up and out, and end up with a 10,000-seat facility there that they'd own, lock, stock, and barrel.
At Broadmeadow?
Yeah, at Broadmeadow.
Yeah.
So that was one of the first starts, and then I got introduced to all sorts of different people when I was doing some speaking engagements, and one of them said, I've got an idea here with the land that's alongside the Newcastle Knights ground. There's some vacant property there.
Yes, I was going to ask you that.
So we went down, had a look at that, and said, this would be perfect. Talked to Basil, got these architects to start playing around, and it was going to literally lead into, and Basil was going to donate a new members stand for the football and lead that directly into this licensed club that we would have in the basketball arena that would face down over the basketball courts with a restaurant, nightclub, and poker machines wall to wall.
Yeah, of course.
In our own licensed club, in a state-of-the-art building, we would have been rolling in money.
So this is right next to the Newcastle Knights ground.
Yes.
Yep.
And that's where things were heading when Basil decided, I'm out of here. You know,
okay.
I'm out of Australia. You know, I'm sick of this. All of the paper, the things we've got to do now. I got enough to do overseas. I'm gone. And literally pulled up stakes and pulled his stuff out and moved it all overseas and moved to Monaco with Bobby Cowper, the cricketer, and became the famous Australian mafia over there that invested in all sorts of fabulous projects. But Basil was a breath of fresh air, and we went to London and spent time with him and over into Los Angeles to negotiate the stuff into a World Basketball League that they were talking with Basil and some others about. And I persuaded them not to go ahead with that because I'd run across that guy once before in the States down in Alabama when he was setting up an academy down there with Arab money.
Ah, rightio.
So I said to Basil, no, I think I'd avoid this by the second day. But it was a good plan and everything, but couldn't work.
That'll be why they're still in the tin shed then, because, he left and the shed's still there.
Honestly, I thought, I'm sick. Why should we be treated like poor relations up here in Newcastle? We got a lot of people that have been playing basketball here for a long time. Why should we not have a decent facility up here? It doesn't make any sense, And so he agreed 100% with that. So And then, of course, then you tied it in with the Premier of New South Wales that was on the board of the Sydney Entertainment Centre.
Because it eventually all got done. The Entertainment Centre is still there today. The Newcastle Entertainment Centre, that is. And like I say, the tin shed's still there. So it did eventually go through and everything, but just not the 18,000 seat stadium.
Well, the goal was to really have a beautiful facility for us, that now we've got an equal playing field. When we're looking for recruits and so forth, we're a relatively short distance from a city like Sydney, with a state-of-the-art basketball facility with all of the bells and whistles.
Same size.
We go travelling. Yeah, and at that stage, we'd established ourselves as playing a full circuit in the United States at the end of each season, which was fun, and and the guys had a good time with it, and they all got paid. Yeah, no,
that was weird to think, because now right next to the Knights ground is that area where you're talking about, where the stadium was going to go. That sat vacant for many years, and now many years after you left, I mean, and now there is it's hockey fields. It's actually, it's hockey fields, like there's about 10 hockey fields. You go to a Knights game every now and again, you'll see a couple of hockey games being played there, you know? So that would have been good with the Knights.
And it was perfect for this sort of combination that we were talking about. It certainly would have worked, and it was easy to get to and focal, and everyone knew where the Knights. So it was, I did a lot of stuff. When I thought about it a couple of years later, I thought, Jesus, I was cramming a hell of a lot of stuff into. I was talking at the football clubs. I talked at the university over and over. I went and talked
to the tax office. I've seen the video of the tax office there.
Well, I went and did one for a rugby league club.
Okay.
So I go out to what they are. Then they invite me to a game. So I go out to watch them play in this game. I played rugby league anyhow, and it was a fun talk at the club. But anyhow, we're sitting in the stands, and it gets to halftime, and the president of the club says, "Oh, come on down to the rooms and half-time, if you like." So, that'll be nice, I'd like to see how they do this. And he said, maybe you could say a few words. I said, well, I'd like to see him. So we go down into the rooms, and they get through, and then the coach says, we've got Ken Cole here. He said, Ken used to play some rugby, and he said, you got any thoughts that you'd like to throw in? And I said, well, this little 5'8's getting the ball, and he's kicking behind you literally every play and just turning you around. I said, I can't believe somebody hasn't at least just levelled him one time. And
like you would do on a basketball court. Yeah,
he won't keep kicking at 40 or 50 yards. If you frighten him a little bit. So they go out, and in about the first 5 minutes, the guy kicks the ball and is clearly gone, and one of the guys irons him out and gets sent off.
Yeah, right.
Oh no!
They blame it on you.
With the club president, and I'm thinking, I just said that inside, and he's knocked this guy out. And got sent off. And I'm turning around trying to work out. I said, look, I've really got to fly, coach, because I've got some things I've got to take. I was trying to work out, how do I get out of here?
I've got to get out of here, yeah.
I just made a statement. I said, well, that was really good. We had Ken down here. He told them they should knock this bastard out, and they knocked him out. Got sent off, cost us the game. Okay. Don't invite Ken back to the rugby league anymore. So
that was that the Knights too? That was a Knights game?
No. This was a level well and truly
okay. Well, probably the local league or something.
Should have been a little more social, yes. It was the local league, but it was just one of those little unusual things that happened at the time. But there was just so many things happening, and I was dealing with so many different, talking to architects and talking to builders, and then going and talking to some politicians, and then going and trying to find out who can pull some strings with this property or this property, and what do we have to do about getting it licensed and make sure that we can have a fully licensed club there. Now we're on an equal footing, and
that Knights one would have been perfect. It would have been perfect, the Knights.
Yeah, and see, Sydney, it kicked off a lot because the former Premier was on the board of the Sydney Entertainment Centre, and Kevin Jacobson, who was Kevin Jacobson from Cole Joy and the Joy Boys, but now is a big-time concert music promoter, and he was on the board, and he knew Basil, so that Basil knew the Premier, so that's where they started getting together, and the discussions started to roll into, we've got this guy up here who could help us now get a basketball stadium underway.
Yep.
How could we tie this all in together? Yes, let's talk to the Brisbane Entertainment Centre, see what they think. Everybody was in agreement. Bang, let's go.
Yep.
And so there was so much shit that was going on But also at the time, which I didn't think a lot about at the time, I had, I'd been diagnosed as diabetic in the United States before I'd come back. So before I took over the Adelaide job, I was already diagnosed as a diabetic. But I did not understand that the fact of the matter is I am a diabetic, not I have diabetes. I am a diabetic.
All right.
It's not going to change.
Yeah.
That's my life now. And I didn't know that. And when they talked about insulin, I thought, no, I'm not going to be sticking needles in myself all of the time. I hate that idea.
Yeah.
So I'll control it with diet. And I did. And when I got back to Adelaide and opened the nightclub and everything, I was eating like a horse, but weight was just dropping off. Well, previously, when I first found I had diabetes, my weight went from 235 pound up to 305 pound because it was the first time in my life I hadn't worked out at all.
Right.
Then I find I'm diabetic. So when I got to Newcastle, I'm now full blown. I'm slap bang into the middle of a major problem because the sugar levels, they said, had almost been unable to read for 3 years. They were that high.
Yeah.
So they said it's a wonder you haven't lost your sight or your feet or whatever. So then they put me on insulin up there right away. And so right at the start with Newcastle early on, I was starting to inject twice a day and be monitored non-stop for the next 2 years.
I remember that because I think there was a bit of a problem with your feet towards the end, or maybe the middle.
The neuropathy was so severe, the pain was so severe in the neuropathy that they could hit me with one of those cattle prods on the feet, and I couldn't tell you where they were touching. but there were times after 1 or 2 games where I had to wait till the building pretty much cleared out so Al Green and one of the others could maybe help me out to the car.
Oh, right, okay.
And I had to get helped out of the car into the house and undressed. I was in so much fucking pain after a lot of the games. But I didn't understand what was actually happening with it. And as I started to come to terms, then everything changed around. But early on, it was just the way they explained everything was so confusing. And once I went back to the States, I mean, I left Australia after that when I came back here to Sydney and then ended up heading back to the States. But at its worst, I was taking a month's worth of Codral Forte painkillers a week. So I was taking those a week, and for nearly 7 years after that, at the start of that, I was drinking a bottle of Jack Daniels a day.
Oh, right. I remember that too, I think.
Yeah.
But taking us back to your final year, 1991, you brought in, who'd you bring in 91? You brought back Jerry Everett. You brought back, did Sean Dennis come back, or he come back in 92, I think?
I can't remember. I think we had Sean.
You had James Bullock, Michael Johnson, still James Carr.
Yep.
Peter Harvey. Peter Hill was still there. Oh, no, Peter Hill left in 91.
Peter was gone.
Yep. And Kruger was still there.
Yep. Neil was still there.
Neil Turner was still there.
Neil, after that, went to Sydney, and Peter had gone to Sydney. And, no, I can't really remember.
I think that was because it was only about 10. You only had rosters of 10 back in the day, so I think that will be pretty close. But you brought, like I said, you brought back Jerry Everett, and eventually he got sacked. But I just want to talk about, we were talking about the Hunters before. Now, in 91, I got back from the States. I played high school basketball in the States, and I got back in 91, and the Hunters, I started training with the Siebel team, the Hunters, and we had this import by the name of Richard Ramey. I don't think if you remember him or not. Richard Ramey was playing Siebel. He averaged a triple-double. He averaged 30 points. This is in Siebel.
Yep.
10 rebounds, 10 assists, and 10 turnovers. So he averaged a triple-double. And he actually trained a couple of times in that week or two where you sacked Jerry. And you eventually brought in Troy Trevelyan, who done a great job. But Richard Ramey, I don't know if you don't remember?
No.
I was going to ask you, why didn't you sign him? Because if you don't remember, well, you don't remember. He was playing Siebel at the time.
Yeah, I vaguely remember the name now that you mentioned the name. But no, it was pretty rushed at the time. And I had a call from a good friend of ours who said, there's a guy playing in Perth, Troy Trevelyan, nice guy,
Yeah.
I said, what sort of a player? Oh, he's a fair player, not a great player, but he's a solid player. And I thought, well, with the amount of turmoil, if we've got a guy who's steady as can be, we might as well have a look at him and bring him over. I didn't figure that I'm going to find suddenly somebody right out of nowhere that's going to salvage us. We're sort of in trouble at that stage. And the turmoil that was going on behind the scenes was getting to be rather...
I think you only won 2 games up until that point.
Could have been, yeah. It was the worst season I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
Until Al Green and Donnie Gibson got suspended and we missed the finals with Westies on percentage in 1984, I think it was. Up until that stage, I had never missed a finals in my life.
Yeah, coaching, yeah. Or
playing or coaching.
Okay,
never finished lower than third.
Yeah, all right.
In a state championship and local championship and national championship, I either won it, or finished first, second, or third. With the St Kilda days, 5 years, never missed a grand final in Melbourne, and played with 3 clubs and never missed a grand final in 8 years with all 3 clubs and representing Victoria over straight through like that. So everywhere, when I left Adelaide the first time, when Pauline and I moved to the States, that was 77, and I won the national championship coaching South Australia for the second year. And that was I brought Phil Smythe into the team at 17 and his brother, and had probably the youngest team ever in an Australian championship and won by an average margin of nearly 30 a game. And then I moved to the States. So I left South Australia in pretty good shape from when I moved here, only 5-7 years before that, and then came back. And when I left in 86, of course, I left them with the national championship and so forth. So I didn't burn too many bridges here when I didn't lose in the last 2 years in Adelaide.
That's right. You brought Al Green in 91 as well over to Newcastle. He lasted a couple of seasons.
Yeah, well,
he ended up retiring at 40 odd or whatever he was when he retired. Yeah, I think it was 93 he finished up with Newcastle.
Fibbing about his age, so you can probably add another 4 or 5 years.
Okay, so he's 45 when he retired, all right?
Yeah.
But he ended up retiring. He did a good job at the Falcons as well. He was there always, like he was the 1 or 2 guard. I think because he retired, that's why they brought in Rucker the next year. But
Al at his best was unstoppable. I mean, I coached him the night he got 71.
Oh, right, that's right, yep.
Down at, I think we played down at Frankston against Lindsay's brother, Tony, was coaching, or Barry, Tony Gaze was coaching. Yep. And he'd been building up to that anyhow, and I'd been saying to him, you got 30 and you missed 3 shots that were wide open, you could have got 40 tonight, and then, you got 40 tonight and you could have got 45, what about that and that? And then finally, you're around
71.
50 others, no reason you can't. And that game, we were out of the finals and we were just starting to beat up on that team, and I'm saying to Al, you can get 50 on this team, and then shit, you can get 60s. And so the guys are just pouring the ball into him and he's knocking it in. But he was him and Leroy together, were just nightmares to handle, and they were worth 50 or 60 a game with the 2 of them combined over and over and over.
Yeah, Al was good for 10 or 15 points, with the Falcons in his later years, but it was
he had a
solid 10-15. Yeah, and it was.
He had great work ethic, and he never quit on a play, and just played his ass off all the time. Wouldn't back down to anything at all. But he was he could be a handful.
Yeah. Okay. He did actually get. I think it was the last game in. It might have been 92. The last game of the season, and the Falcons were out of the playoffs, but we played the Kings, and literally, I think it was the first 2 or 3 minutes of the game, he ended up going toe-to-toe with Dean Utoff, and they both got thrown out, within 2 or 3 minutes of the first quarter, So he backed down to no one, Al Green.
Oh, no. I met him in Baton Rouge, so he was at LSU, and that's when I met him, and the coaches... thought that he could help a little bit, but basically he had no outside shot, and I used to say to them, well, that's not accurate, because I've been scrimmaging with Al and a whole lot of these guys right through summer at the field house, so I'd go down there every day. When I first went down there, I was just a slightly overweight Australian guy who'd moved over there and was trying to play basketball with all of the brothers down at the field house.
Yeah.
But it only ever took a couple of couple of scrimmages, and I'd sort of work my way in well and truly. So I played a lot with Al
Yeah.
in the field house, and I knew that he could knock it down from all over. But they had an All-American forward, Duran Macklin, Rudy Macklin, and Rudy was a lefty, and Dale was running like a 1-4 offense, and Rudy did his knee in the first game of the season, so they held him out for the rest of the year and moved Al as a guard
Right. Switched him
into
over.
the
Yep.
paint in the 1-4 offense, which cost him, I believe, his immediate move into the NBA, because by the end of the season, the NBA people didn't think he could shoot from outside because he only ever played inside.
Yeah,
And
okay.
they
He did have not a bad jump shot from memory. I mean, he wasn't that
Well,
bad.
he got better and better and better at it. I mean, he was a legitimate inside-outside threat. It wasn't just inside, and he could get to the bucket, and he was a lefty.
Yeah.
And I designed the way that I set everything up gave him, and all of the players, a reasonable amount of freedom. But it was great for a person like Al because it spread the floor and opened everything up, and he was a nightmare.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, and I gave him major defensive responsibilities for the first time ever, and he fought that early on. And then once he embraced it, because he started getting a lot of credit for it, I thought he was the toughest defensive guard in the league. He could just dog you everywhere.
With or without the ball, he was the toughest. I mean,
Yeah,
he would like with the ball, he would like score on like I said, guys like Uthoff and their centers. So
well, against LSU, he went into the bucket towards the latter part of the game twice in a row. Little low post with Shaquille, made 2 little jump hooks over him in a row.
Really?
After the first one, I thought he would never try to throw up another
he did
one.
again, yeah.
But then Shaquille will throw this 20 rows back, and no, he got it up and over him again.
Yeah.
Little lefty on his little jump hook. We all thought, oh, that's pretty neat. Got that big bastard jumping everywhere. So
No, it was my favourite year of the Falcons was 1991 for a few reasons. The first one was obviously because you brought Jerry Everett back, and he's my favourite guy, you know. So, and then the second reason would be for bringing Al Green over from Adelaide as well in '91, because honestly, like going through that team, you've got Al Green at the 1, you got Jerry Everett at 2, you got Mike Johnson at 3, you got James Bullock at the 4 or in the middle, and Kruger or Turner at the other spot. I mean, that is a gun team.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I felt that all of the time, I felt we were just really, really close. And then, of course, we'd go across to the States, and that would reconfirm it, because everybody seemed to be playing, loose and
out of the skin.
And you'd come back and think, okay, and then bang, we'd struggle again, and then all of a sudden. I remember towards the end of one of those seasons, we beat 4 of the top 5 teams back to back to back to back.
That was '89. That was when you come last. Yeah. That was 1989. I was watching those games the other day. You beat North Melbourne. You flogged them, actually, I think. And they won it in '89, didn't they? Or was it Canberra?
Yeah, it nearly turned into a brawl after that game, because I was.
That's right. Yes, with David Graham. Yes.
Yeah, little smart ass. Yeah,
tell us what happened there.
Well, I was just niggling him on the foul line. You know, you've never been able to make a shot under any sort of pressure. And he missed them, and then the siren goes, and they've lost.
Yeah.
And I go and shake hands with Bruce and turn around just as I'm starting to walk across the court, and bang, there's David Graham right in front of me. You know.
Yeah.
Starts mouthing off and so forth, and then the assistant coach was Mark Wright, and Mark.
Oh, he was involved, was he?
Yeah. Luckily, Mark. He jumped in front of me, and then all hell broke loose, and people were coming from everywhere. And I just tried to keep getting off the court, and then something nearly started over near the change.
They were going into their change rooms, and Greg Lazard actually was bellying up against Ray Borner.
Oh, that'd be right, because Ray came over there yelling some stuff out. That's right.
Yeah.
And it was turning pandemonium anyhow. And next day, they've reported me. The referee reported me for striking David Graham.
You didn't throw a punch?
Never got close enough to throw a punch at him.
No.
And I was in real trouble. Oh, and the referee charged me with assault for laying my hands on the referee.
What?
And that never happened. And so the next day I'm sitting there, and Bill Palmer's reading out these bloody things that they're charging me with
Yeah.
They could have kicked me out for life.
Yeah.
And this is what they're telling me. See, and I'm trying to work out what film we've got. And when you're looking at the TV film, there's not a whole lot that you could see other than people everywhere and all of this skirmish in the middle of the court, but you couldn't see that clearly. And then my beautiful secretary said to me, "Oh, what about Ken? Remember you asked me to put a camera up for you in the corner so you could watch where referees' positions
So
are
you've got
on
vision
the court?
from that, did you?
Go in and is that worth having a look at?" And I said, "Are you serious?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Absolutely." And they bring it out.
Yep.
And you can see I never got within
No.
several feet. And Mark Wright jumped in, and the referee nowhere near touching a bloody referee. I didn't even see the bastard walk past and never touched him.
No.
And then so I and then Mark Wright called me, the assistant coach, and I'd known him and his family forever. His dad was one of the most down-to-earth truckies you'd ever meet, and he helped me with a few little problems from time to time. But I loved the Wright family. And Mark called them up and said, "Hey, all of this is on David Graham, our player."
Yeah.
He said, "Look at me." He said, "You don't turn your back on the person that you think's going to start throwing punches." He said, and I turned my back on Ken.
Yeah.
Because it was our player that was trying to get at him, and Ken just ignored him and kept walking. So they threw it all out. I then wrote back to the league and said, "Why isn't this referee suspended for life?"
Yeah.
If there was no film of any kind, and he is swearing on the Bible that I pushed him,
then
there
should be some consequences for him. You know, like
why? What are his consequences?
Yeah.
Nothing.
No.
Absolutely nothing. The bloody bench reported me one night for our own bench, said that they were terrified because I pushed the bench back into their stomachs. I walked over, I was so mad I pushed the bench back in. I jump up and run straight downstairs and go to the bench because I think, I can't believe this. I go down and of course it's nailed to the floor. It's bloody...
Isn't the timeout button on the side of the bench or something?
You can't, you couldn't move the bench.
Yeah.
It's not possible. It's bolted to the floor. No. Ken managed to push it into us. And
of course.
A video of that and sent it through. And you think, what's fucking wrong with people? What is wrong with them? Well, I haven't done anything to offend these bloody people. No.
I remember that David Graham fight because the reason is I actually had season tickets and my seat was right in front of that. You had the booster seat, the prepaid seats there, the boxes, and then I was like 2 or 3 back from that. I had a perfect view. I viewed the whole lot. It was unreal.
Well, and there were different times too when the guys on the TV broadcasters say, "Oh, the coach has lost it. He's on the court. I can't believe this." And the players were over there on the sideline. Whereas I had actually said to the players before they went on the court for the previous timeout, next time the whistle blows and there's a timeout, just get over here to the bench. Take your time. I'm going after these bastards on the floor. I'll be right back. Don't worry about it. And then I go onto the court and start getting into them. The crowd's going ballistic. And I'm standing there and then I see them reaching for their whistles and I just immediately spin and go straight back to the sideline and say, "Okay, now don't say a word because somebody's going to get technical fouled and it ain't going to be us." And when we go out and bang, they technical fouled Dave Lindstrom at the time and I burst out laughing and Lindstrom I remember when he complained about our benches, David. I like David. He complained about our benches. So when he came down to the game that night, I'd cleared off a little spot alongside it and I'd put an old lounge armchair there.
Oh, really? For him?
A lounge chair from him, and he went even more ballistic. I said, "Oh, I put your name and everything on the back of it, David."
Yeah, what more do you want? Yeah.
I got your lounge chair. But anyhow, years later, he thought it was funny. But not at the time.
No, those bench seats for the opposition, they were actually pretty bad. Like the home team was pretty bad. The bench was even the opposition bench was worse.
Well, I learned a lot of that stuff from the Americans. So, that they would come in and like when the Russians played, they had 10 basketballs or whatever, but there was only one of them that the air wasn't let out of. So when they got down, they only had one ball actually to warm up with.
Oh, right.
Before the game, we put them in this video room. At that stage, you didn't have TV videos, and so they wanted to see some college film. So we put them in this room, and then we sent up fried chicken for them and food, closed the door, turned up the air conditioning to the heated blood, let them sit down, And an hour before the game came up, the poor bastards had to be drained.
They're all bloated. Yeah, yeah.
Go downstairs and get ready to play the game. We've exhausted them. We've left one ball little bounce, and by the time they get a couple of them pumped up, ready to go, the warm-ups are finished. And we'd get requests for visiting teams, wanted 500 tickets to come up and watch a game with Shaquille, and you'd give 2 tickets here and 4 tickets there, and you wouldn't let any of them sit together, so you just spread them out.
Yeah, around the stadium.
They get a bit more serious about their... Dale put them... We won a game narrowly against Mississippi, and he was so fuming that he let all the guys have a quick shower, and then they had to put just some underwear on in their sweats, got outside and got into the bus to take them to the airport, and he told the driver, take them to Baton Rouge. And they left after the game and drove all the way through to Baton Rouge till about 3:30 or 3:45 in the morning, pulled up outside the P. Maravich Centre and got them out and ran a full training session.
Right.
So they take some of these things just a little more serious.
Yeah, just a little bit, yeah.
Drove the poor bastards back in a bus, and then put them straight onto a court to practice for 2 hours. And I'm thinking, well, I don't know this would go down in Australia. I just don't think this would,
So what's your favourite memory, or not favourite, but most memorable moment or memory of your time at the Newcastle Falcons from 1988 to 91? Anything like that happened, or any particular play, or anybody you sacked or anything like that?
No, most of the time, all I've ever really remembered or thought much about the games in general is winning.
Yeah.
I had a lot of high-scoring games individually.
The first year you did all right. The first 88.
My early years, I was a scorer.
Yeah.
And it was when I had an exceptional second half in my first national championship for Victoria, and I stopped Werner, and we won the championship, and then I was able to sort of do that 3 or 4 times when Doc was controlling everything. But I used to point that out to Werner later on too, I only had to do it to you for half a game a season. That's all I played against you. And I was 3 or 4 inches bigger, and the difference with me playing against Werner or anybody else, I really did not lose concentration. I was fit enough and had a resting pulse of 34. I was ready to just fight you and dog you all game, So if I was guarding you, my whole goal was if you're going to get 15 or 20 on me, you're going to have to get them through the weakest part of your game. I'll give you nothing that you want. And so I was able to concentrate long enough. And I told people for 5 or 6 years, most of the American imports that came down were being judged. People would say, oh, yeah, wait till they play against Kent.
Yep.
Now, wait till they play St Kilda and have to come up against Coldy and see what happens. And so, because I didn't have to score a whole lot. I'd recruited Eddie Paulibinskas, I recruited Tony Barnett. Yep. Once we'd added these players and we were the first legitimate running team, then we caused chaos. We averaged nearly 132 a game in year 2 in seasons where we scored 167 against Perth in the quarterfinals of the Australian Club Championship. 99 points in the second half. How is that possible?
Yeah.
No 3-point line.
No 3-point line, no.
So we just used the press from baseline to baseline, and bit by bit Australian basketball changed because players like to play that way. They didn't want to play slower down shuffle basketball or South Australian basketball, which was very European and slow and more mechanical.
Yep.
And I wanted us to be playing like a combination of the way the Americans play the game and the way the Brazilians and the Spanish fast break. We don't have to play above the ring. You can score so many ways on layups or fast breaks. Combine that, but I wanted to do it with an Aussie touch, with it. We're a country that plays aggressive sports. We have rugby league, we have Aussie rules.
Yep.
And so I watched Australian rules and I thought, I love the way Hawthorn play in this rolling, fighting pack almost all game. They kick it about 20 yards at a time. Nobody seems to be able to kick it very long, but they're physically grinding everybody into the ground. You can't play. And I thought, shit, you could do that on a basketball court.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking on the fast break, instead of coming down the middle all of the time, which everybody was doing, I saw a couple of people that came down the wing. And so I watched that and watched what Rick Pitino was doing with Kentucky and thought, okay, we can do this, and
Apply it,
added
yeah.
sideline break. But that was the real start of aggressive running basketball. But I mean, when I first moved there, I played for Eastside Melbourne and they never made the finals. We made the grand final, lost to Melbourne.
Yep.
I transferred to Melbourne and made the grand finals with Melbourne for the next couple of years and won titles and Australian titles. Then transferred to St Kilda that had never made the finals and never had a state player. 5 years later, we've won national championships a couple of times and the state championship 3 times and the summer league. I never missed a grand final in Melbourne. So it was that way when I came to Adelaide. I coached the first time I came over here. I came at the very end of the season to South Adelaide. They had to win their last game to make the finals on percentage.
All right.
So I came over and coached them in that. Then we got knocked out in Melbourne, and so I asked for clearance and moved over. And then I coached them in the 3-4, then the preliminary final. And then we played Westies in the packed house in the grand final and beat them. So I'd been there 4 weeks and won the state championship. And my arrival here was one of the best parties of all time afterwards at my new house.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd landed and gone to basketball heaven. This is,
So you're saying your time in Newcastle wasn't it was good personally off the court and that, but on the court because you didn't win or didn't win as much as you thought you could.
Yeah, it was funny too, though. I never, I would have thought later on that why I wasn't a whole lot more upset. That's what started me seriously thinking about whether or not I should do this anymore because,
All right.
I was always so bloody competitive.
Yeah, and it was sort of on the down.
And I'm wondering whether or not whether I'm as competitive as I used to be or whatever, because it's not hurting the same. But on the other hand, I was really happy with watching the progress of some of these players. And also, we went away almost every year to the States.
I remember those tours.
And one group to the Philippines when they asked me to coach an Australian group, and I virtually took all of our guys. And then we got stuck over there, but we had 2 weeks holiday or 3 weeks in the Philippines. But so you got to know everybody a whole lot differently because I introduced them all to Thanksgiving, we're in big places for Thanksgiving. We had a beautiful setup at the club or at the restaurant where we were, and then you're traveling in cars every day for hundreds of miles and sitting around in the rooms talking afterwards, and you sort of became, I really got to like a whole lot of the guys, a whole lot. Yeah. And I saw them improving all of the time, and I was always.
A few of them have gone on. Like Peter Harvey went on to the Gold Coast Rollers and Brisbane Bullets. I think Harvey still has or is he second to Rucker, the assist record?
Well, Chrissy Steele went on to play a lot of years after that.
Yeah, Neil Turner
continued on, and Neil continued on, and
Grant Kruger went and won a championship with Wollongong.
Krugs did, and so and it all ended. I have no down feelings about any of the players or anything at all. I enjoyed it all of the time.
They all went on to other teams and big, not bigger, but or not better, but other things.
They had a nice. Well,
Peter Hill was at the Gold Coast. Peter Harvey, like I said, he still, still has the I think it's 22 assists in a game.
The thing that I used to say over and over, and I'm sure I've said it to you a dozen times, but I always considered that most of the coaches were organisers of groups. Yeah. They were terrific at, they could run all sorts of different offensive spreads and reverse and shuffle and anything they wanted to call it.
But not focusing on the individual, you're saying.
And I believe that they're organisers of groups, and I'm a teacher of players.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yep.
And so my goal was to tell you that no matter how good you think you can be, I can take you to a higher level than that.
Yeah.
And if I fail, I'll still take you above where you thought you'd ever get to.
Yeah.
And I'll never do anything on the court to hold you back.
Yeah.
So I worked on a 1-3-1 offense, which when you really break it down, was just a whole lot of triangles everywhere. I had triangles everywhere. And when I met Tex Winter, who was credited with the triangle offense for the Chicago Bulls with MJ, and Dale Brown brought him down to LSU for 2 years to show him how to run and so forth, run the triangle. And when I met Tex Winter, I said to him, I love your offense, and I started running it about a decade before you started.
Yep.
And he just looked at me, and I said, and I took it from an American coach.
Yeah.
And so it was a guy, Les Lane, who played, I think, in the '60 Olympics with Oscar Robertson, and he was coaching the Mexican team at the Olympics, or the Japanese team at the Olympics, and they were running a 1-3-1, and they were getting a lot of open shots from the top of the key, and it was spread nicely, and I thought, shit, you could run screen and rolls out of that. And it was only much later that I'm looking at it and I'm saying, shit, well, no wonder they like to talk about the triangle, because this whole thing's a triangle.
Everyone gets to score or whatever.
If the centre moves, I've got a triangle there. If the centre moves back to the middle, I've got a triangle either way from the top. And it's perfect because the spread's perfect, but it gives opportunity to everyone.
Yeah.
And if somebody gets hot, we can isolate him. If we can run them off double screens and single screens. We could isolate the guys in the centre. They can't switch off Mark Davis. If the ball goes into Mark Lowe, Billy, you go to the opposite side and leave him there. Darryl, go to the corner. Hey, they can't switch off you. So Mark's one-on-one, and Darryl, you're one-on-one. And Al, you're one-on-one, and you can't be stopped. And once the players buy into that, then you're home free. And I had the ability, it seems, to be able to get people to believe all of the things that you're talking to them about, because I don't bullshit them at all. I'm not telling them, you can do this, you can jump tall buildings.
Yeah, not puffing them up.
I'm telling you, I've watched you, and I know. That's what I said to Dusty the other night at the basketball.
Dusty Hannes.
I said, you got to come out firing, and what you got to do, or you won't be here.
And what did he do?
You've got to attack off the dribble, force the man back, frighten them off the dribble.
He came out and he had a good game.
He's going to say, don't let this little bastard get into the keyhole, and now you've opened up your outside shot. I said, start taking the ball. I said, I'm a better judge of shooting talent than you are, and I'm telling you, I'm a better judge of your talent than you are, and you can score.
Yeah.
You can score at Willa here.
And I think he went out and had 22 or 26 or something.
Yeah, 24 points 24. Or something in 20 minutes,
Yeah.
And that was in a
probably saved his job too, I'd say.
Well, it may very well have, but it's funny because some players have got all of the talent in the world and don't seem at times to know how to use it.
Yeah.
And it's so if you can just turn that switch.
Yeah.
That you.
He's got it. Dusty Hannes has got that switch. He can turn that 3-point shot on and off.
And he's got incredible range, and it is a legitimate shot. He's got but he does not have a killer shooter mentality. He'd like to, I think.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have it. And then they say, I was a leading scorer in the G League. Yeah, well, the G League's a joke. So you can't, exactly. That's like saying he should get a game because he's played for Coburg B grade and he did really well.
So he should go, I'll ask you one more question about the Falcons. I noticed that some of the games you gave me, the 86 games from the Adelaide when you won the comp, and you lost 2 games all year, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that year.
Both by one shot.
Yeah, right. I noticed the stadium, the Apollo, it was the Apollo Stadium back in the day, wasn't it? I noticed that it had similar, like the court boxes and the private boxes and stuff, it was similar to Newcastle. Did you bring that sort of from there?
Yeah.
I think it was so similar, even the sponsors on the score bench were the same, I think. TAA or something like that. So did you sort of bring that aspect?
United Airlines. See, I did a deal with United and put their logo on the court and got 15 return tickets to the States for it.
Oh, right. Is that how it worked?
So there was most of my travel taken care of to get
for the
team
year
to and from the States. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if I could talk them into the couple of extra tickets, then I brought away a reporter from the radio stuff and a couple of guys that were architects and covered them all by my sponsorship deal and persuaded Coca-Cola to pour a lot of money in when they'd backed out of it altogether by putting the keyhole as Coca-Cola.
Yes,
in the
I noticed that. Yeah, I noticed because that was the same. The keyhole was the same.
Yeah.
The sponsors were the same on the score bench, and even down to the private boxes. They even, honestly, it looked like it was Broadmeadow Basketball Stadium. It looked just with different sponsors.
Well, the boxes that were there when I got there, which were just on each side of the score bench. That was all that they had there.
In Newcastle?
And then, and then when I asked about that, Dennis said, yes, but none of them have been sold. We haven't sold any. They're just contra deals.
Yep.
And I said, "Are you serious?"
Yeah.
So you got 5 boxes there that are generating nothing, and they've given me a bonus on $100,000 worth of boxes or something. He said, yeah. And he said, we can't sell one yet at the moment. And we ended up selling there and at the end of the court, and then I put some up at the bloody back.
And there were some new ones on the baseline you had to put in. There was 5 new ones on the baseline.
Anywhere I could squeeze them in.
That was similar to that. They were even to the look and the wood and the finish and everything was exactly the same as the 36s in '86.
Well, must have been out there just to intimidate people. See, that's all.
Or you were channeling the 36s. You didn't even know it or something. I don't know.
Well, it's one of those things. If you find something that's working, it probably stays in your mind.
Yeah, keep going with it.
Keep going with it until somebody changes you. But and that was a great court to play on too. I love playing on that court up at Newcastle. That was another thing. That was a player's sort of court for whatever reason. It always seemed a good place to play. Yeah, good shooting. So I had nothing but nice memories at Newcastle. And even at this stage, with all of the little things and so forth that went wrong, I got closer and closer to Dennis.
Yes. Yep.
He's one of the nicest human beings I've ever met.
Yep.
And so I built great relationships with so many of the players and family people. I got no regrets. I just wish we could have won more and we could have built that bloody stadium.
Yep. That's what I take out of it. That you're saying it's the winning, and could have won a few more games or something like that, but just performed a little bit better. And
I only ever really think about such and such a game. I remember I shut a guy down in that game that we won that championship and so forth. But it's very rare until somebody says, I remember a game in Spain. We played against Brazil. They were world champions. I got 28 on them in the second half. At the airport the next day when we're leaving, every one of their players came up, hugged me, kissed me on the cheek. I had no idea about any of that. I'd never experienced any of that, being treated as an equal by those. I remember that game because it was so different, playing with a rubber ball, a void ball, and knocking it in from all over. And at that stage, I believed I could play and score with anybody. And I scrimmaged with a lot of the NBA guys when I toured with the Globetrotters. I played against a lot of those guys.
Yep.
Shit, I knew I could play at that level. But I wanted, at that stage, my main hope still was I might have got the Australian coaching job.
Okay.
And I just wanted one shot, so I turned down the offers that I had to play in the States.
To put focus.
Yeah, because I thought I got 2 more years till I pick the next Australian coach, and I'm going to be so close to that. I really would just like one chance to see what I could do with the best talent in the country.
Would have been something to think about.
Well, I've always got players to play hard, and I just thought that, you give me the... And I said to people, I don't even need to be a selector. I said, but give me the 12 best players in Australia. No politics, just give me the best 12 that have earned the right to play for Australia. And that'll suit me just fine, and I'll take everything from there. And I got lost on the vote of the president's casting vote. And that was John Rashke, who I'd known for most of my life, and
really,
voted to stay with the Victorians at that stage. But otherwise, there would have been one chance. But anyhow, it's been an interesting run. So, but Newcastle's had nothing but nice memories and some stories that can't be told in all probability.
Yes.
The main thing was that there was a lot of fun and a lot of players that I think. The thing that I'm probably happiest about is I can hardly think of a player other than maybe poor Jerry, but I can hardly think of a player that I've coached that hasn't ended up with, a decent life and nice family and got to play more basketball, and a lot of them coach kids, coach junior teams. And I just look at that and talked to Mark Davis earlier today for another hour and a half or so, Mark calling up and just chatting about different things, and then stuff that I'd helped him with that I'd never thought about. Daryl Pierce telling me about how you first did it with me at 12 years of age and all of the... And it's really, really nice. So long-term relationships have built... And I always thought basketball saved me off the court, taught me about how to live my life in general. I was nothing more than a street kid. And so it taught me bit by bit how to get along with other people and how to merge in and how to start setting goals and targets. And and how to say I can try anything that I want to try.
Yeah.
I'm not. When I decided at 18, I'm not going to die in a factory like my dad. I'm not going
Yeah.
to work myself to death in a factory. And I never did again. That
Yep.
was it. I
Yep.
gave up thinking about that. I just looked for things that I thought, oh, that's a good job to advertise. I could do that.
Yeah.
And off
Anything.
I'd go and give it a try. Until I decided I think I don't like work at all, and the two-up game sounds like a good option. And so
It's
it's
easier.
been a wide variety. Yeah, working in the Louisiana oil fields for 5 or 10 years was another interesting experience. And so it's been coaching in Egypt, another interesting experience.
All right.
Being the only white face at the NAACP convention in Baton Rouge and sitting on stage with leading members of the former Black Panthers and
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
involved in some of that stuff, talking to a coach who was right alongside Martin Luther King for a lot of his time. He was a diabetic coach,
All right.
coached Southern University, Joel Ebe, became really nice friends with so many people like that. So that's why I don't like seeing some of our athletes down here, the black athletes, going too far overboard with how difficult life can be for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I've been there in the States where it was really,
We've
really,
got a good here.
and here,
Yeah.
you know, look at what's happened. Just look at where guys have succeeded and what they're doing and their quality of life and so forth. Well, they weren't held back. So how's everybody else being held back now? So I just think it cheapens people that have really paid a heavy price
Yeah.
when you start objecting to Mickey Mouse stuff, you know.
All
Leave
right.
that.
The final question, the final Falcons question. Is there any truth to the there was an 8-second offense? I don't know if that was around. I think it was only 88, because when you had Jerry Everett, Mike Johnson, Wayne McDaniel, I heard that the best option would be for them to shoot a shot within 8 seconds, and you had worked something out that the percentages were that if they shot the shot, because they were averaging 30 points a game each.
Yeah.
In 88, and you worked out something that if they took the first shot in 8 seconds, it was like 50%, 60% chance going in or something like that. You had a better chance of winning the game, but with the 8-second offense. Is that right?
No.
Was that
I don't
true?
think
Yeah, right.
No,
I didn't think so. I just heard. That's all.
No, but I did do one absolutely off the ball thing, off the wall stuff, and I think we tried it in one game. Might have been with Adelaide over here in Adelaide, where I decided everything was going so weird that I was going to do something really weird. So on the foul shots, I was going to line up 2 of my guys at the far end of the court in the keyhole, at the bottom part of the keyhole, one guy in the around the halfway line, and the other 2 in for the rebound. And as soon as the ball went through the bucket or we got the ball, we would grab it, just throw immediately to the guy in midcourt who would turn straight away and attack. And if they wanted to take people and put them back there, then they couldn't press us. And if they didn't do that, we were going to push the ball down within 3 or 4 seconds straight away and be down 3-on-1 or 2-on-1.
Yeah.
And score layups.
Because I noticed you did a lot of 3 on.
A couple of times at practice, and it looked all right.
Yeah.
We went out and did it in a game, and it looked like, what the fuck are
Yeah,
they
yeah.
doing? The other team got confused.
Yeah, I was going to say you did a lot of 2-on-1 or 3-on-2 at practice. So.
Because that's the only way to build your habits. You go from 2-on to 3-on-2 in particular, and 4-on-3 is the ultimate virtually.
Yeah.
And then you bring the trailer in from the halfway so he can run in through the centre circle and join in and make it 4-on-4. So you have to quicken your 4-on-3 up to make sure you get the shot off. But if you do it day after day, week after week, you come down the floor as soon as the ball takes off, everybody just runs to wherever the hole is.
Spots, yeah.
Yeah, and it's natural. Yeah. And players like it because it's natural. It's not.
Maybe that's what the 8-second thing was. I don't know. Maybe they were getting confused with that. I don't know.
Well, maybe it's just me that's confused now. So who knows? I may be sitting here not recognising that.
What offences you ran?
Yeah, did I do something as stupid as that? Oh, that would have been a strange idea.
I'll get another player on and he'll tell me, listen, Ken used to run this 8-second offense.
Yeah. And you say, well, I spoke to him and he can't remember it. They might say, well, I'm not surprised. They might think, was he smoking as much now? No.
Yes.
No, that wasn't.
No, well, it was good to have you on the show, Ken. We've been talking for a little while now. So, mate, it was great to have you on and got some really good information and confirm some stories and rumours that I'd been told about and all this type of stuff. And the LSU, Shaq and Robert Horry and Chris Jackson and who was the other guy? Sprewell, Stanley Roberts.
Yeah.
Penny Hardaway, I forgot. Geez, playing
Penny
against them
Hardaway.
guys. I didn't know the Falcons actually played against them type of guys.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, see, we played a lot of the cream of basketball. One of the tours, we played 8 of the top 10 teams in the country.
Yeah.
So I didn't go, because that's where I could get good guarantees. But I also played a lot of smaller schools that couldn't afford to play us, and they paid me like $1,500 for a game or $1,000 for a game.
Yep.
But I liked the coaches and I liked what they were trying to do, and it was an off day, so
Yeah.
I said, I will play you,
Yep.
knowing that there's a good chance that guy's going to end up in a big job. And that happened.
Yep.
A number of times, like 3 or 4 years of organising tours down the road, all of a sudden, here's a guy that I've been paying for $1,000 who can now pay 15.
Yeah.
You know, he's at a big time school and he's happy to play you because you helped him out.
Yeah,
So
and he's getting more money.
we built relationships.
Yeah.
And we built relationships with all of those sort of people, again, by doing it the right way. You know,
Yeah.
we didn't cause a problem. We played our asses off and got lucky and started winning some games. And I used to love that because I would call Dale and coaches in the early hours of the morning asking how they did, knowing that they lost that night. And so they'd ask how we did. And I'd say, we beat Alabama tonight by 23. And Dale said, Alabama Southern. I said, no.
Alabama.
You know, Alabama, University of South Alabama. No. Alabama.
Alabama.
Wimp Sanderson's Alabama. Wimp Sanderson's Alabama. You know, what's his name? Sprewell. You beat them by 23. I said, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, Ken, that's great. So I hang up and said, that was really, really good because I knew he had a bad one tonight, but it's a bit unfair, but I feel good about it. So,
yeah.
Is there anything
else you want to say about the your time in Newcastle before we end up the show?
No, just that it was I had a lot of fun, and I was disappointed for 2 things. One, that we weren't able to go ahead and put a team on that was going to start winning championships, but I thought we started working towards a decent foundation. And secondly, I really wanted to see us get that major stadium up there and make all of the people that had been working hard in basketball up there. I thought, wow, how proud they would be with that.
Yeah.
And we weren't able to. And when they told me, they've built a centre there, I thought, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
And then I go up and Dennis takes me to a game. This is
tin
a tin
shed.
Yeah.
And that's the tin shed that has been there since 92. It's been there for, what is it, 22, 30 years. So it's still, the tin shed was temporary and it's still there today. So that's where all the big concerts go now. They all go to that tin shed.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well,
the Hunter Pirates played out of it as well.
So it sort of helped. So that's, that's all right.
That's all right.
It worked.
Yeah.
It worked in its own way.
It worked in its own way.
Yeah. And I'm still alive and kicking and trying to work out, if I can make 2 more years and we're married 50 years and then I can try and get another 4 or 5 in. And then people like you and I can be sitting here 10 years' time saying, can you believe these bastards?
Yeah.
Because when they first said to me, diabetes cuts, 10 to 15 years off your life, I said, you're not serious, are you? And the doctor said, oh, yes, Ken, it will. I said, so I'm pretty much only going to make 95. And the guy said, what?
95.
And I said, well, I was planning to make 110. You told me you're going to take 15 off, so I guess I'm stuck with 95.
Yeah.
So,
and you're a basketballer, mate. Us basketballers or ex-players or ex-coaches have got something about them, mate. We just get through life a little bit easier and we survive a little bit better. We're a bit fitter. We're a bit stronger.
Every single doctor that we talk to says, I've never seen this before, to the extent that we've just had enough, So, as I say, when the 4 months to 2 years was a bit scary at the very beginning, until you start thinking, no, that can't. There's got to be a way to extend this. And then I thought I'll give it a full-blooded try with cannabis because I've been running a business. We had 14,000 patients there, and either I'm a hypocrite and talking to them about stuff that isn't true, or I believe what I've been talking to them about and I need to find out.
And it's also mind over matter as well with a lot of things too.
Well, yeah, because it changes your focus and now you start thinking a bit more positively, and then you look, but you're always waiting for that next test that tells you it's moved one step too far. But so far, I'm okay.
All right. Well, no worries then. All right. Well, thanks for coming on. Episode number 1.
You're very welcome, my friend. And
We've set the bar.
We haven't sent everybody a little ballistic, but at least we've had a good time. It's therapeutic for me.
Yes,
So it's
yes,
perfect.
same here. Yeah, we've had a good old chat for nearly 2 hours now. But yeah,
well, we'll do it more often without having to drive you crazy. So.
Yeah, I'll get you on in a couple of shows' time or something. We'll see what happens.
All right, Clint.
All right, thanks very much for coming on. Good to have you, Kenny. Well, all right, that was a great interview with Ken Cole, the former Falcons coach from 1988 until 1991. A lot of information in there, and I bet you there's some stuff you didn't know about. But what we will do, or what I'll do, is I'll try and get a player or an ex-coach or an ex-manager or a water boy or a towel boy or someone from the Falcons. This is the former Falcons podcast, and make sure you tune in. Don't know when the next one will be, but the next one will be posted on the Falcons Facebook page, so make sure you give it a like and share and watch the video and share the video and all that type of stuff. Subscribe or whatever you do these days. So keep your eye out on the Falcons Facebook page for episode number 2. And that was episode number 1. Thanks for listening, guys. See you all later.